Hello, I'm Seven Deadly Sims, and today we will be building a Victorian mansion, which was suggested by quite a few of my followers on Instagram, which is just Seven Deadly Sims, the same as on YouTube. I will try to remember to put it in the description, though if I forget, then you can just search Seven Deadly Sims. So this voiceover is quite intimidating to me because it's 20 minutes and that's quite a long time to be talking for, so bear with if it's not the best. But as you can see here, we are just starting off with the shell of the house. I did it basis off of a reference picture. I just searched up Victorian houses and I found this one. And this roofing, it took a while and it gets complicated, all the roofing, especially on the top, and I keep adding new pieces and stuff as we extend part of the house out to like the side and stuff, because on the left side and the back you couldn't see that in the reference picture, so I sort of just made that up a bit and I just dragged random bits out, which of course meant more roofing for me, which is just lovely. So here we are doing the tower, and then I think later on we do make the roof a bit higher on the tower and make it inverted a little bit. And as you can see here, we are adding the balustrade things. Is that what they're called? The bits that go above the fences. And we just added these big porches, and there are quite a few little exits that come off the house, including one that comes off of the kitchen and one that comes off of the living room. And then I do add a side entrance here, and I make the porches all connect to the front one, so it's a big sort of what do you call those, horseshoe porch, which allows me to decorate it all with tables and seating areas. It gives me a lot of space to work with. Now here I was trying to figure out what sort of roofing I wanted above here, but clearly that little cone roof wasn't really working, so I did swap that out for a normal roof, and I had to extend the roofing over this little cutout as well to make it all flow seamlessly and nicely. I'm just adding some columns now to make it all work with the stairs, and the placement of those all work together nicely. And then I tried to make the back a little bit more interesting rather than just a flat back, so I created these little balcony porch areas. And now we're doing a little bit of terrain tool, just creating a path to the main stairs, though we do quite a bit of terrain tool around a bit. So as you can see, I put on this white siding as the wallpaper right now, though we do change it in a bit and I do experiment a little bit with that. But now we are adding some windows, so I did use the windows from the reference picture, though they didn't have a porch underneath that overhang in the reference picture, so I used my own little door there, and I do actually make that into an exit. And as you can see now, we're messing around with the colours a bit, because I was thinking maybe something bright to make it more interesting, and yellow did look really good and I really liked yellow, but I made a yellow house recently so I didn't feel like I could do that, so we ended up going for this simpler sort of creamy swatch, and then I used some trees and stuff to try and brighten it up a little bit. A lot of the windows that I used are floor length windows, which sort of made the interior decorating quite difficult, trying to find a place for like the headboard for the bed without it overlapping with the windows, or to find the area where I put the kitchen cabinets without overlapping. But I figured it out in the end, and I think that it's quite nice because it lets in lots of light, which Victorian houses sometimes don't have as much light in. And I feel like it's always easier to play Sims when you have a lot of light. In a minute we are going to start with some landscaping, as you can see, and I tried to match the landscaping from around Glimmerbrooke. Oh, this is the 1312 Brookside Drive in Glimmerbrooke, and you can see that in the left top corner of the screen if you were wondering. But I used the debug options from Realm of Magic to try and make it match the world, because I feel like that's the easiest way to landscape. I believe this house is like 110,000 simoleons or something like that, though I can't quite remember, so if you look on the gallery it will tell you. The reason it's so expensive is because it's a 3-bedroom house, and I imagined there to be the parents and 2 teenagers who lived there, though one of the teenagers does have a double bed, so you could have 2 couples living there and a single sim, but regardless, this house does sleep 5. And now we're moving on to the interior. So I've already floor planned, and I had to switch it around a couple of different times because I couldn't quite figure out how I wanted to do it, and I ended up at one point extending the front of the house a little bit when I was trying to do the floor plan to try and fit in the stairs. But in the kitchen I wanted it to seem almost modern-y with the white, but still have that old time feel of the exterior. So maybe it was renovated at some point, though it's still not ultra modern. And in the kitchen we also do have a dining room, which you will see in a little bit, but we are just about to start cluttering up the counters, I think, or do we have to put down the sink first? Oh no, we add a cool backsplash, and I sort of struggled trying to figure out which sort of one I wanted, because I wanted it to match the rest of the room, but then I also wanted it to be sort of modern, so I ended up with this one for a while, though I do end up changing it up a little bit. And now we are cluttering up the sides of the kitchen, and we are adding some kitchen roll in a minute and some plants. And this house has a reasonable amount of plants, but not too many. No, I didn't go crazy like usual, but I do like how the kitchen ended up looking. On the side of the kitchen with this door to the exit, because I do add a stairs coming off of that porch which leads down to the bins, but I ended up putting a hutch there in a little bit. But on this side here I am going to put a microwave, which I sized down, and I also sized down an island counter so I can place it wherever I want on the side. And here you can see I have placed the hutch, and this stool is very common in this build. But now moving on into the dining room, and I sort of struggled choosing the chairs because I wanted them to seem old style, but then I still wanted to match with the brown, so I ended up choosing these chairs, and I ended up using a pinky sort of rug which I used a couple of times throughout the build. And over here I ended up putting some little shelves, which I thought was quite a good use of this corner space, as it's got a lot of windows around there, so I couldn't really do much else. And here is where we're going to add the staircase and the bin area over here. So I'm just changing up some of the landscaping to make it all work, and we're going to add the bins now. And now we are going to move on into the living room. I struggled to figure out which fireplace I wanted, but I ended up doing the base game more traditional looking fireplace, which worked quite nicely with the old style of the exterior. And I decided to, instead of putting a TV above the fireplace, to put a picture from Cats and Dogs, which I do use quite a lot throughout the build, though in a bit I come back to the living room and I do add a TV on the side next to the door to the hallway. And here I'm trying to figure out what rug to use, though I do change it from this one in a bit when I come back to the living room, because I wasn't really that happy with it. I did experiment with some chandelier type things above the dining room, but in the end I decided not to use one because the natural light from all the big windows was enough, and I thought that it was quite a nice space already, and I didn't want to overly make it seem smaller with a big light. So here I am trying to figure out what to put above the sofa, and I end up using that cats and dogs photo again. And this layout I actually do end up going back to, and I end up putting the TV on that side table, though for now I do replace it with a bookcase. And I try and put in some umbrellas in this corner by the door in a minute, because that is yet another exit, of course. And now we're moving on into the study, and I end up going back to the desk you just saw. But first we are doing the living room a bit more. I sort of moved around a lot in this build, and if I had an idea I'd just go and do it straight away. I didn't really do it room by room necessarily. So now we're moving on into the study, and I was trying to figure out what to put above the desk, because originally I didn't have a taller desk, but in a bit I will replace it with that more cluttered one that's coming down now, so I don't end up needing anything above it. I did try and put some of those corner seat things from Seasons, I believe, in this corner here because it's the perfect size for it, but they were all a bit too tall, or they didn't match this style of it, so I ended up using a chess table instead, though I did have to change the angle of these chairs so then they'd fit in. So if you did want to play with it, then you would probably have to change that up a little bit. And here we are trying to figure out what chair to use, and I use the matching one from the living room. And now we're upstairs into the master bedroom. The layout of the room that I'm doing right now does end up changing as we move the bed to the other wall that's free of windows, because I couldn't really figure out how I wanted to do the dresser, and it just made the space really awkward having the bed there. And I do actually end up changing the shape of the room as well by extending the teenager's room, though I do have a toddler bed in there right now, as that was what I was originally going to do. And now we are adding a little divider to make it almost seem like a little dressing area back then, and I put down a sink as well, because in a lot of older houses they would have had a sink inside their bedroom, and I thought that maybe they brushed their teeth there, or they could wash their face there before bed. I'm using the OMSP shelf, which is that red shelf that you see, which is custom content, though it doesn't stay in any of my builds, so you can download all of my builds custom content free from the gallery. My gallery ID is theconnors10, but I use the shelf to raise up the towels so then they're on the stool, and I will try to remember to link the shelf in the description below. And now you can see I have extended that bedroom out a little bit because the space was too big and I couldn't really figure out what I wanted to do with it, so I thought I'd change it up a little bit, and I end up adding a grandfather clock in the corner here because I love the look of them, and I wish we had a more modern version because I really want to use them more, but I do think that they should add some more clocks to the game because they're severely lacking, and I don't think many have been added as part of packs, or at least not recently. They have. We've almost done with this room, though we do have to just clutter up the sides here, and I use the same plant as I used downstairs, which is this one, and I put another clock in there because I just love clocks. You've got to know what the time is, though I don't think they actually show the time in The Sims, which I mean, that would be amazing if they did, though that's a lot of detail, so I'm not surprised they don't. And we also add a lamp on here to try and make it seem like you could just lean over and switch it off before bed, or you could read with it, because I imagine the people living here to be quite studious, and that's how they sort of came into their wealth, which let them afford this house. I did just want to mention, as we were doing the decoration that the gameplay icon was leaked on the Sims stream, I think it was. I'm not quite sure, but I'm sort of thinking it could be an underwater place or maybe out of space, which is what a lot of people are thinking. Though honestly, it's sort of, you can't really tell that easily, so I'm really not sure, but I'm definitely excited to see what it is. And if you have any ideas of what it could be, then leave them in the comments below, and definitely make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. But now we're moving on to the porch area, and we're doing a little seating area, and it was sort of awkward because there are literally no seats that matched this bench, and I really wanted to use it because it's a really cute bench, so I have to figure out what sort of chairs I want to use, and these match the style, but then the swatches match. And now we'll just jump back upstairs, I think, because I was finding it quite difficult to figure that out. So we're just decorating this teenager's room, though this room was sort of an awkward shape to decorate, and I don't like decorating kids' rooms, so it's not super duper decorated. But I think it does the job, and again you've got that little changing area that I was just really liking doing at this point, because I thought that that divider fitted the style of the house quite nicely, and that changing area was quite popular in the Victorian times, so maybe they just carried it on into the modern times when they're living now. And this teenager does have a little balcony because they've got the smaller bedroom, so I end up cluttering up this with some little planters and some plants in there, which I really like to do with a lot of my builds because I love the gardening skill. But now we are moving on to the second teenager's bedroom, and I did originally try to fit 2 beds in, but the room layout wasn't really working for me. I couldn't really figure it out, so I ended up originally going for this single bed, though I do swap it out for a double bed in a little bit. And I also add this little reading nook I thought it could be in the corner here in the bay window by just merging together a couple of these ottoman things, which I really like to do, though there is a little bit of clipping, so hopefully that doesn't bother anybody. And believe it or not, I added yet another divider because I just really liked them, and I overuse them a lot in this build, but I mean, I'm not mad about it. And I add another sink in here with a mirror above it, and I also add that cats and dog stool next to it as well. In a minute we are going to change this single bed for the same double bed that I used in the master bedroom here, and I do also manage to fit in another grandfather clock in the corner by this floor length mirror, which I thought was quite a nice use of the space, and a standing mirror over in the changing area. And then I add in some curtains in a minute, but I do add in a little painting of an older house before that, just above the bed. And now I'm just going to decorate the side tables with the same decorations as the ones in the master. But in a minute we're going to have the screenshots, so enjoy the screenshots and like and subscribe if you like this video. You're afraid, but it'll be okay if you just stay with me. We can run from here and we can disappear, and they won't find us where we are going, dear. So baby,